welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be doing a Dino Dan video, and today we're going to be talking about all the dinosaurs that were cut from Dino Dan, Dino Dan Triassic Adventure, and Dino Dana. There are a lot of other prehistoric creatures in this video as well. I do want to mention that this list of species is from the Dinopedia, and I don't know exactly where they got these sources from, so take it with a little grain of salt, but anyway, let's jump into this video. So first, for Dino Dan, the first species was Allosaurus. Apparently Allosaurus was cut from Dino Dan, which honestly is kind of a shame. Assuming it would have had a design similar to the website design, which is the one I have on the screen, it probably may have been cut due to it not kind of being just a plain animal and not having too many colorations, though I think it really would have been cool to see this species in the series and then eventually see its design get updated eventually. But anyways, next is Ceratosaurus, which is a pretty interesting one as well, especially if they were both supposed to be in the series at the same time. It would have been really cool to see Ceratosaurus and Allosaurus. And yeah, I kind of would have wished to see what they would have done with the animal. Though I don't know why they cut these two, since Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus are in completely different size ranges than any of the other carnivores in the series at the time. So they would have been really cool to see in the series. Next is Megaraptor, which is really interesting since we are getting Megaraptor soon in Dino Dex. But Megaraptor would have been pretty interesting to see what they would have done with the animal. And I think, I don't know if they cut all three of them just because they didn't want to have a bunch of large carnivores in the series. But anyways, it's pretty interesting. But the next one is Plesiosaurus, which is also very interesting since Plesiosaurus was added into the series in Dino Dan Trek's Adventures. And they may have cut it due to the fact that it is an aquatic animal and it's kind of hard to incorporate it into the series. So that's probably why they did cut Plesiosaurus, but it's really nice to see that it did make it to the series eventually. Speaking of Dino Dan Trek's Adventures, we move on to Dino Dan Trek's Adventures. First being Dinochirus, which is pretty interesting because I don't know if the papers updating Dinochirus were out at the time when they were planning on adding it. But yeah, it would have been insane to see this thing in the series, and I still hope that it does make an appearance soon in the future since it doesn't appear in any part of the franchise so far, except for that one Dino Dana book. But anyways, next is Tropeognathus, which Tropeognathus I would have loved to see since they don't have any medium pterosaurs, because in Dino Dan Trek's Adventure they introduced their first new pterosaur after Dino Dan introduced Pterodactylus and Quetzalcoatlus. This Dino Dan Trek's Adventure introduced Pterodastro, and Pterodastro is another small pterosaur like Pterodactylus, and Quetzalcoatlus is a very large one. So Tropeognathus is a good in between. Would have been really nice to see, even though Tropeognathus is still a really big pterosaur. It would have been quite a bit smaller than Quetzalcoatlus. But yeah, Tropeognathus would have been a species I would have loved to see in the series, and I think it would have had a really nice design. Next is Zool, which is pretty interesting since Zool did not make it into the end of Dino Dana, though they really could have introduced Zool at any point in the series. It could have been throughout the entirety of Dino Dana, since I believe the animation where Zool was introduced was probably made after Dino Dan Trek's Adventure, at least the first season of it, so it probably just didn't want to have to introduce it into the second season of Dino Dan Trek's Adventure. But they really could have put it in Dino Dana at any point, but they decided to save it for the last episode, which is kind of a shame. I would have loved to see the series in Trek's Adventure as well, because since we only had Euoplocephalus, and at that time Euoplocephalus' model looked kind of ugly. But again, Zool would have been an amazing species to see in the series, and they don't have it listed, but Gorgosaurus possibly may have also been cut from the series since Zool was, and they were kind of made at the same time, so who knows. Maybe Gorgosaurus as well, but they only had Zool listed. Anyways, now move on to Dino Dana, which has a lot of species that were cut. First, we have Acrocanthosaurus, which would have been extremely awesome to see in the series. And it is a really big shame that they cut it. I actually don't know why they would cut Acrocanthosaurus. Maybe they just had other species they wanted to do, and Acrocanthosaurus just, I guess, didn't make the cut. But anyways, next they have Bruchockiasaurus, which is also a really interesting one, since I believe at the time Bruchockiasaurus was considered the largest dinosaur, at least one of the largest. It was probably due to the fact that it was kind of questionable at the time if Bruchockiasaurus was the largest, and another reason is just due to the lack of things they could have used it for, since pretty much Footolonchosaurus is the best analog to what this guy would have been in the series, and Footolonchosaurus literally only had one actual memorable scene in Dino Dana, where you can see it kind of try to shade itself under a tree. But besides that, we don't really see Footolonchosaurus besides a background dinosaur, literally just to be used as something big in the background. So that may be why they did not want to put Bruchockiasaurus in, since there really was no point in making a whole new model where it would only appear a few times and literally do nothing. Though they are introducing Dreadnoughtus in Dino Dex, so it's interesting to see what they would have done with that. But I really kind of wish they would have put Bruchockiasaurus in, since it's a more obscure species. But anyways, next is Dilophosaurus, which Dilophosaurus would have been awesome to see, but maybe they didn't want to introduce it to take away screen time from Nanucosaurus. But yeah, Dilophosaurus is a really cool species, and I hope it appears in Dino Dex, though it's pretty interesting that they did not put it in the series. Anyways, next is Herrerasaurus, which I actually have a theory with Herrerasaurus and a few other creatures that are from the Triassic, which I'll loop back around to in a second. But Herrerasaurus would have been insane to see in the series, though I don't think it would have made many appearances. I think it probably would have barely appeared, in fact, but we'll get into that in a second. Okay, next we have Hesperorhizocus, which is another creature, which I would have loved to see in the series, since this guy would have been really cool, since we have Sinornithosaurus, Microraptor, and Incisimosaurus is our small kind of dinosaurs, but Incisimosaurus is a herbivore, and then Hesperorhizocus would have been cool to have a small quadrupedal carnivore, kind of since Sinornithosaurus is known for being venomous, and then we have Microraptor, which is kind of known as just being kind of the basic one. But Hesperorhizocus would have been really cool just to spice things up every now and then. I really hope this species gets introduced, or at least some sort of small crocodilian, like terrestrial crocodilian at some point. I would love to see in the series. Next we have Crumbosaurus, I believe is how it's pronounced, but I believe this guy was probably cut just due to the fact there's no reason to really put it in, since they already have Edmontosaurus, Corythosaurus, and Maiasaura they use in the series, and generally, just looking at Ungrunia, which is the other Hadrosaur in the series, they barely used it. It got one episode to itself, which is nice, and then apparently it appears in one other episode where it's briefly chased by some T-Rexes before not being seen for the rest of the episode. So, that's probably why they did not include the species, especially since there's other Hadrosaurs, which other people would be way more interested in. Speaking of other Hadrosaurs, Parasaurolophus, which is another one that I actually think could have worked in the series, though maybe they didn't want to take away screen time from Corythosaurus, especially since it was about to get a new redesign. But that also explained its presence in the Dino world, where it has a mini game circled around Parasaurolophus. So that would explain why they cut Parasaurolophus, and also maybe since they were planning on making a new model, that's why they didn't add it to the Dino Dan Dino Cam, so I guess that might explain why Parasaurolophus' absence there. But anyways, Parasaurolophus would have been insane to see, and maybe there's a chance that Parasaurolophus will make an appearance in Dino Dex, since it's a popular species. I think it could actually be used, and generally it's already kind of been in the series, especially more recently. So Parasaurolophus I definitely could see. Now we have this next creature, which is Pterantosaurus, which Pterantosaurus generally is another, I believe that is also from the Triassic, and now I'm going to talk about my theory for these Triassic animals. Generally, I think these creatures were probably intended to be in the last episode of Dino Dana, where they're taking the song about the different time periods, and when they start off in the Triassic, and the Triassic period basically only has two Triassic animals in the song, which is Eoraptor and Procompsognathus, but then the rest of them are just random recolors of dinosaurs from like the Jurassic period, and I think one from the Cretaceous or something like that, which makes no sense. But what if some of these species were supposed to be featured, since instead of having like Eustreptospondylus, Agmialodon, Balosaurus, they could have, and Proceratosaurus, all from the Jurassic and Cretaceous, they would have had Teratosaurus, Hesperorhizocus, and Herrerasaurus, which all could have been from the Triassic, but they decided not to put them in instead. Since I think Eoraptor and Procompsognathus may have stayed as recolors. And maybe since they decided they were going to just do recolors for those two, they decided instead, hey, there's no point in making new models since they're just going to appear here. But hopefully some of these make an appearance in Dino Dex. Honestly, if I could pick one of these three Triassic species, I'd probably pick Hesperorhizocus, just generally I would like to see it in the series the most. And then, yeah, that's generally why I think they weren't included. And that's pretty much all for the canceled species, but I do want to talk about this one last one, which is kind of random. But Beelzebufo was not listed as cut, but it was listed to appear in a Dino Dana game. And actually, I got a comment about this, which is kind of what started this whole video, talking to me if I knew anything about the Beelzebufo. And, well, I tried searching, I literally can find nothing about Beelzebufo being in any of the Dino Dana games. So if anyone knows about that, can you comment it down below. But, anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. And generally, what is your opinion on these species? Is there any of them that you think should appear in Dino Dex, or if any species that you think should have put in the other parts of the series? And if you could pick one species from this list to appear in Dino Dex, which one would it be? Personally, my pick, I think I'd have to go with Hesperorhizocus, but probably second to that is either Tropicognathus, Bruchockiasaurus, and I guess Megaraptor, but Megaraptor's already appearing, so I won't really count that one, but I guess Hesperorhizocus. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video, and goodbye!